Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeff Martinez. I am brand new to the YouTube community. In fact, this is my first video ever. One of my passions in life is guitars, and I recently saw a video posted on YouTube from Glenn Fricker testing pickups. As a guitar player, we are obsessed with the question of what affects our tone. Is it our guitar tone wood? Is it our pickups? Is it our amp? Is it our speakers? Is it a combination of some? Is it a combination of all? Well, Glenn was testing that pickups are not actually as impactful as guitar players would lead themselves to believe, and guitar players spend hundreds of dollars on their guitars getting new pickups swapped, trying different combinations, seeing how they affect their tone. But the hypothesis here is that the amp and the speakers that your cabinet is running through, or if it's a combination amp, that your amp and the speaker attached to the combo are mostly what affect the tone, and that the pickups make a minimal difference. Now, there are a couple disclaimers here. The first disclaimer is that this applies when high gain is attached to an audio recording, specifically when a guitar is running into a recording interface and high gain is applied. The pickups' individuality or their own uniqueness tends to fade away. When pickups do not have high gain attached to them, or if they differ, say, humbucker to a single coil, the tone difference is actually pretty significant. But again, when you apply the high gain, that individuality tends to fade away. So I thought it would be fantastic to do a version of his experiment on my end to see if I came up with the same results. I was actually pretty intrigued with what I came up with. Now, another disclaimer, I could not do the experiment on the scale that Glenn Fricker did. He did it with 10 different guitars with 10 different sets of pickups, all of them humbucker, but his results were the pickups didn't make a significant amount of difference in tone when high gain was applied. I decided to scale down that experiment since I couldn't quite meet his conditions. I took 4 guitars and ran them through the exact same type of experiment, and I'm now going to show you those type of guitars, what they are, and some generalities about their specs. The first guitar I used was my Solar AB1.6 BOP. Now, in this guitar there are passive Seymour Duncan humbuckers in the bridge position, and in the neck position is a Duncan Solar single coil. For this particular experiment, I did not use any of the neck pickups. I only used the bridge pickup since we're interested in high gain. Anyway, that's the first guitar. The other specs on this instrument, like the scale length, the fretboard material, the body wood, all of that we're not going to dive into. I'm just talking about right now the pickups. Now let's move on to the next guitar. Next up is my DIY Jazzmaster. I built this from parts I purchased on Reverb, from Sweetwater, from Guitar Center. So it's really just got a combination of parts. To be honest, I'm not even sure what the body wood is. The neck is a replacement Fender Jazzmaster neck. The other parts in here are parts that I bought separately, like the bridge and the tuners and all that fun stuff. But the pickups for this one are active Fishman Fluence Moderns. Now we're going to move on to the next. Third in the lineup, we have my Harley Benton SCDLX Godo. I don't know why that one's so hard for me. I have to actually look at the piece of paper and say, hey, this is what I have. Anyway, the pickups are Tesla VR2 Alnico 5s. These are passive pickups. And last in the lineup, we have my Agile Scepter 627 Pro. It's been a while since I bought this thing. I had to remember the name of it. And then in the bridge position and for the pickups in general, we have active EMGs. I believe the combination is 8160. Okay, so we have 4 different guitars, all of varying specs, varying brands, and different pickups. We have 2 passive pickups and we have 2 active pickups. For this experiment, there are going to be some constants, however. The constants are the strings. They're all the same. They're all brand new at the time of the recording. And the other constants will include the signal chain. Part of the experiment that Glenn did is when he's recording. He's talking about the minimal differences in tone for pickups when you're recording and high gain is applied. For the recording, I'm going to be running directly into my Scarlett 2i2. I'm going to be running into Reaper, and I will have Bias FX2 running with a preset on the amp. It's going to be a metal tone, but I haven't touched anything as far as the settings on the amp itself or anything else post-recording. So it is just the recording from the interface into the DAW, which is using which is using Bios FX2 and a pre-configured amp set on there. And we'll go ahead and dive into that tonage now. You can hear the differences on the 4 guitar. Now, for recording purposes, there is the idea that we listen with our eyes. In other words, we see a guitar being played and we believe that it's going to have a certain output or have a certain quality to it depending on the spec. Just as an example, let's say you're a fan of EMGs. You see a user or guitar player playing EMGs and you think, man, that tone is awesome. That may not be the case if you shoot it out against, say, a lesser pickup that actually doesn't have that much of a difference in tone. So for this recording, you're not going to see the guitars themselves being played, and I'm not going to tell you in what order they were recorded in. You're just going to see the audio as it plays through Reaper. We'll get to that now. Well, what did you think? Going from guitar to guitar, did you think the tone differences were huge? Did you think they were significant? Did you think the pickups were making a huge difference in the recorded signal? To be honest, I could hear some differences, and I could hear obviously the changes when the guitar is being recorded from one to the next. But I'm kind of left agreeing with Glenn that the tone differences weren't huge. They weren't significant. At least not in the way that I was picturing. I thought going from guitar to guitar, when high gain was applied and being recorded in a studio, that I would get some big differences, because that's what I feel like when I'm just playing through my guitar on my amp on my own without having the signal being recorded. So that also opens the door for where we can expand this experiment in the future. I had a couple ideas. The first idea was to do this exact same experiment except using 4 different 7-string guitars. I would follow the exact same format as this experiment. The biggest difference is we're adding in an extra string per guitar, and we're using different pickups for each of those guitars. Another area to expand upon is to do this exact same experiment except recording through a mic'd up amp and speaker. We'd still be running a recorded signal, but instead of running directly into an interface into Reaper, we'd be running from the amp into the interface and then into Reaper. So we're adding in an extra step, and it'd be a different type of signal than just a recorded one running straight into an interface. However, both of those ideas are for the future. They're for future videos. In the meantime, thank you so much for joining me for this video. Thank you for watching my first video, as a matter of fact. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Take care of yourselves. See you for the next one.